Ah, the miracles of fantasy. What better sensation than to take yourself out of reality for a few hours to put yourself in the shoes of a valiant warrior, destined to break free from the mundane. We've all wanted to distance ourselves from everyday headaches and nuisances, which stretch the limits of our imaginations to produce entertainment as good as fine wine. From mellow, tranquil forests with a pleasant breeze, to the fury of combat pleasing our inner thrill seekers, the art of jolly good world building is as strong as ever today. Role-playing games had to start somewhere, though. Dungeons & Dragons is a set of guidelines and world settings to create your own stories. But some people, especially in the 1980s when the internet didn't exist, didn't always have a group of friends to play it with. So, Andrew Greenberg got the brilliant idea to bring Dungeons & Dragons to home computers, letting you challenge a devious handcrafted dungeon from the comfort of your own home, without spending hours arguing over whether or not you read the rules right. Bringing us the birth of the computer role-playing game. Suffice to say, I don't need to tell you Wizardry's a legendary game. Its design is still referenced by many games today. Instead of repeating the same old critiques everyone's heard since 1980, I'm going to dissect the experience from start to finish, expressing my feelings from my first playthrough to let you know if Wizardry and its many incarnations are worth playing today. The first thing anyone's going to notice when they boot up their games are their visuals. A picture paints 1,000 words, often setting the tone a work is trying to follow. Assuming you went through the trouble of giving yourself a virus from a third-rate website just to play the PC version, you'd be rewarded with the pleasure of staring at yourself in the dark vacuum of space, occasionally broken up by lines of text. Yeah, you were lucky to have more than 2 colors on the screen at once, let alone having the privilege of seeing text and pictures at the same time. You can't even see the ladders leading out of the dungeon. Monster squids squirted everything with invisible ink. If you picked any version of Wizardry that came out before 1987, it probably didn't look too much better than this. The Commodore 64's 16 colors considered remarkable. But that's nothing Japanese dweebs eager to use their new computers couldn't solve. As the years flew by, it became much easier to put graphics into your games. Such was the case when Game Studio wanted to introduce Wizardry to Japanese audiences on Famicoms. The power of Nintendo's machine allowed Game Studio to breathe life and texture into the lifeless void of lines. The silly, throwaway quest description in the manual was reinterpreted to be a more serious affair, infused with 80s anime aesthetic, creating a hostile dark fantasy world that's down, but not out. Not only that, but they made the game significantly easier to play thanks to the menus being simplified for 3 buttons. Instead of fumbling around trying to find out what each key does, all you gotta do is point and pick whatever you want your characters to do. Between the visuals and the controls, Wizardry is welcoming to modern gamers, provided you're playing a later version. The average Joe will be able to fire it up and understand the basics quick enough. The troubled, monster-infested kingdom of Lilgamen provides a compelling enough backdrop for your imagination, convincing passerbys to give the game a go. Bringing us to the gameplay. Why you'd want to stick around after getting settled. What do you need to do to overcome the proving grounds of a mad overlord? Well, Prep your mind and mind your temper, because you are going to put your patience through the ultimate test. Even before you start adventuring, you assemble a team of 6 adventurers, preferably with many different talents to ensure you've got options for every problem. But you have to make sure they're competent by getting a stat bonus of 10 or higher when you generate your characters. If you roll a low number, take all the characters' gold, delete them, and try again until you're able to bump your dexterity close to the maximum. You'll never have to worry about missing any attacks. It's pretty much mandatory when some monsters are capable of incapacitating you in one move, no matter what. I get what Surtech were trying to do with character creation. They wanted to adapt Dungeons & Dragons rules where the dice rolls represent no two people's strengths and weaknesses being alike. Thus, it takes a little while before you get a team of fast characters capable of handling all the obstacles in the dungeon. But the randomized nature of character growth causes problems far greater than being a time sink. I'll get back to that when I level up. Once you have your 6 stooges, you're almost done. Generate a little bit of cash, suit your squad up with the best armor money can buy, ending with the sharpest tip of a decent weapon, like a longsword. If the team's armed to the teeth, congratulations! You are patient enough to enjoy wizardry, and you're ready to prove yourself against all forms of despair. Inside the dungeon, you'll demystify the unknown by drawing maps, giving yourself a good workout by fighting ferocious monsters, and looting their dead bodies to find exotic armor to better prepare yourself for the final encounter against Wordna. Wielding the power of pen and sword to become a legendary explorer. You may have heard of or played more popular titles like Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest, which have similar gameplay. They, and almost every turn-based role-playing game, owe themselves to wizardry. And Granddaddy Wizardry's gameplay loop is still great. The balance between exploration and combat is even, at least on your first playthrough. Your ability to explore is directly connected to your character's power levels. A team that struggles to survive 5 skeletons at once early on will be able to proceed with ease once they've gained a level, naturally allowing them to stray farther from safety. When you've completed the map for one level, your team will typically be strong enough to proceed to the next. To prevent the grind from getting boring, you'll occasionally find a treasure chest after battles, giving you a chance of acquiring rare equipment you can't find in the store. These cool weapons are an effective lure to keep you playing a little while longer. They aren't necessary to win, they make your life a lot easier. Why do you think every other game copies this satisfying loot cycle? Finding one of these puppies injects you with an intoxicating dopamine rush as if you just hit the jackpot at Vegas. Once you see that @ symbol next to your names, it's time to pack it up and head to the surface for a well-deserved level up. Unless... Yep, you can randomly lose strength after undergoing grueling, life-threatening training. I have no idea what the designers were thinking. This is the kind of shit Final Fantasy gutted. What do your guys do when they rest up in the stables? Shove their heads up the horse's ass? It's an enormous problem in any version of Wizardry that doesn't allow you to save manually, like in the NES version. If you get too many dexterity downgrades, combat can devolve into a random missed slog. Even if you are playing a more forgiving port, having to reload your save to ensure you get powered up makes leveling more of a chore than it should be. It's still gratifying mowing down monsters that used to maul you when you were weak, but had there been no possibility of penalty, gaining levels would have been much more satisfying short term. The rest of the game plays out like you think it would. Your list of magic spells grows longer as collapsing floor traps become more frequent. The second half of the game throws more curveballs at you as Wordna becomes increasingly desperate to stop you from reaching the bottom, like no magic zones or teleporters that take you all the way to the other side of the map. But it's nothing you can't overcome by saving frequently and leveling up until your priests have the right counterspell. Don't overestimate yourself against large groups of monsters. Double check your maps to ensure you didn't make any mistakes, and you'll usually have the odds stacked in your favor. By the end of it all, you'll be able to admire how much work you put into making your characters unstoppable long term. That's Wizardry 1 in a nutshell. So, would I recommend playing Wizardry in 2022? Only if you're patient. If you just want to bash monsters in the head to get a good story, you've got the wrong game. You will need to put work into Wizardry to complete your map and work around its stupid level downs. But if you're the type of player that doesn't rush to see good things happen, you've got dungeon crawling in its purest form, whipping your wimps into macho monsters. You will find it incredibly satisfying, appreciating valuable game history. My personal enjoyment rating for Wizardry 1 is a C+. They'd only get better from here, as the sequels have more elaborate adventures beyond just getting to the bottom. Wizardry 2 and 3 don't have any dead ends in their dungeons, as key items are hidden in every location, making the map more engaging overall. I'll jump the gun and rate both of those a B-. Maybe I'll do a short video on them in the future, as Wizardry 4 is the first time the series got a huge shakeup. For now, that'll do it though. Let me know in the comments how much you like this new format, and maybe I'll tackle other big RPGs of yesteryear in the future. I'll see you next month or earlier.